Corvo. He has some pretty snazzy equipment and powers, ranging from a fold-out blade and a mechanical crossbow to teleportation and summoning hordes of rats. You know why? Well, he has to deal with some pretty nasty foes in the Dishonored universe. The City Watch, whom have turned against him, have state-of-the-art alongside being pretty scary technology at their disposal. I'm talking the arc pylons and the walls of light that will fry you to a crisp, alongside the spindle legs, heavy armour and quadlum compound bows that the Tallboys annihilate their enemies with. Sure, Dishonored's Dunwall is set as a steampunk combination of London and Edinburgh, but that doesn't mean the technology shown within it can't be a little sci-fi-esque. So, today I'm going to ask and hopefully answer a very interesting question. Is it real? Or, more importantly, could we craft the City Guard's best defensive weapons right now? To begin with, let's discuss the arc pylons. First off, what are they? Well, in layman's terms, they're devices that can produce a large bolt of electricity to blow your face off. But really, it's just some form of altered design that's based on the Tesla coil, originally designed by none other than Nikola Tesla. It's also been cited as inspiration for its creation by the developers, and is a pretty obvious representation of one. So, this will be a simple task for me then, because Tesla coils are real and have been for some time. Well, it's not all that simple after all. Despite me not showcasing it, I do, now more than ever, have to confirm that the examples I'm providing check out. And I honestly thought the Tesla coils were perfect, because they're what inspired the arc pylons in the first place. And they visually are ideal. But sadly, they would be bloody useless for the job that we're currently looking for them to do, In the game, they can strike the AI down with ease, and on the normal difficulty, Corvo can take about 2 strikes from it before he dies. Although numerous institutions have boasted Tesla coils with over 1.5 million volts beaming out of them, they wouldn't exactly kill a man. Even one example, which was a Tesla coil produced for nuclear science, which had a voltage of 5 million volts. Using Ohm's law to calculate its amps and therefore the wattage and energy the recipient would receive, finds us with a slight dilemma. We wouldn't even feel a single joule of energy being transferred. Imagine an apple being dropped on you from a meter above you. Then, take 99.8% of that force away. That is what you would feel. In numerous scientific articles, an average of 2.99 gigajoules would be required to kill a man and then disintegrate the human body. So, we're not even close. On a lighter note, you do have a chance of receiving spiky hair after your encounter with our Tesla coil due to static buildup. But, thankfully for whoever our guinea pig is, they wouldn't die, never mind being disintegrated like in the game. I know what you're thinking, what did it go through all that for? That's sciencey stuff about a piece of tech that won't actually help us. That is where you're wrong. It can help us, just in a stupidly inefficient way. The Tesla coil would eventually be able to overcome the air resistance with enough energy to in fact vaporize your delicate little body. But thankfully that would require about the power of 3 lightning bolts coming straight at you all at once. So it would be a terribly inefficient way of defending segregated zones in your city, especially when you've got guns at your disposal. Just shoot them instead. Much easier. Speaking of defending segregated zones of a city, another piece of gear that a friendly City Watch have is the Walls of Light. They use pretty much the same technology as the arc pylons, but in a more controlled manner, if you could even call it that. As the title suggests, they include a space that when triggered will be filled with an electrical current, so large that it would pretty much bugger up any chance that you would have of being recognised as a human. There are generally metal-based electrodes at either side, and when attached to a power source, they output the required energy to halt any enemies of the state or unregistered civilians from wandering into areas they shouldn't be in. As I've already mentioned, the energy required would be astronomical in comparison to what the Tesla coils output, and wouldn't really be possible through the use of regular whale oil like in the game. Sure, we can't quite make either the arc pylons or the Walls of Light a reality without wasting a ton of power, but we can however use a simple fence with an electric current running through it. Bear with me. So, you've most likely seen an electric fence during your time on this earth, or at least a fence mimicking to be one with warning signs. Usually they're just only deterrents, and don't often cause any fatal injuries because we have laws to abide. Sadly, not all countries take their laws quite so seriously, or what's probably the case in this instance, certain people don't really care about the law whatsoever. An occasion of this is when an elderly lady was charged for holding drug supplies along with plants themselves. And not just a little box of them under her bed. A lot of bloody drugs. That's not important though. What is important is the fact that she had a fence, assumed to be made out of aluminium by the authorities, acting as some sort of protection for her stash. As you could probably guess, it had an electric current through it, to deter any trespassers. The troubling part of it was the matter of the danger that the electric fence inflicted. It had roughly 220 volts flowing through it, and sure, it's nothing compared to the massive 5 million that I was talking about earlier with the Tesla coil. But it's not trying to travel through the air, it's going through aluminium, which has a much lower conductivity than air does. So much so that it killed a man who was trying to get into her property, assumingly so for the drugs that she was holding. On paper, the energy transferred should have absolutely ruined that man's bobby. That would have been sore. On paper, the energy transferred should have absolutely ruined that man's body on contact with the fence. In the report, there was no mention of any deformation of his body, only that he'd been killed almost instantly. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that using a big old metal fence with a controlled electric current could do the trick, but if you don't want to be a mean bastard and blatantly kill a fella who walked into the wrong neighbourhood, it'd be better for the city's residents, the city guards, along with the power supply to just keep it at a minimum, just to put any malicious figures off from going into the zones they shouldn't be in. Lastly, let's take a little look at the Tallboys, the juggernauts that look down on all, and rain fire upon their foes. As you can see, they're basically men in fairly heavy armour on stilts that use a spindle mechanism. Right off the bat, I can tell you, we can do all of this today, but not quite to the grand scale of Tallboys. Let's start with the legs. You immediately think of stilts, or at least I did. A Tallboy seems, at first observation, to be roughly 2.5 to 3 times the height of Corvo. Due to Dunwall being based on cities within Great Britain, let's use the average of a British male. That would be 5 foot 9.5 inches. Triple that and we've got about 17 feet, or just over 5 meters. Yes, there are stilts that probably go to that height. However, those are show stilts, intending in walking, and that's it. What we would need is mechanical or industrial stilts, built to last, built to work in rougher conditions. These tend to be used for reaching high spots whilst keeping the ability of movement that ladders just take away from you. Sadly, the tallest at full extension tend to max out around 64 inches tall, which isn't close to even half our Tallboy's height. So, that's a bust? Well, not really. Being 60 odd inches taller is brilliant. Let me ask you this. What is the main purpose of the Tallboy's stilts? Well, it is to have an advantageous overlook on the battlefield or to see any criminal activity from a distance. With these stilts, you're almost doubling your height, assuming you're in the average range, with an extra 1.6 meters. I'm pretty sure that height increase is plenty to spy out any criminal activity, whilst retaining slightly more mobility than the Tallboys. One last thing that Tallboys are elevated for is to avoid the nuisance of the rat infestation that plagues Dunwall. These stilts are made out of strengthened aluminium to support the weight of your body. And guess what? That stuff doesn't look the most appetizing and isn't super easy to bite into either. So it sorta ticks both boxes? Anyway, let's move on. I may be assuming here, but I don't think you folks want me to go on about armour again. Do you? Well, even if you did, this metal armour will come in handy to talk about in an upcoming video that I plan to do. So I'll save it for then. Keep an eye out. With that being said, we still have the Tallboy's weapon of choice. The wondrous quad-limb compound piece of bullshit. Of course the fucking Pillocks would choose it. I apologise for that. It's just not too fun when you get caught by one of these bastards and he decides to screw you over with his quad-limb compound bow with explosive fiery tipped arrows. These things are the main reason they can pack a punch. They don't even need to hit you or remotely near you, to be honest, but somehow they bugger up your whole plan to get revenge. As I hope you all know, compound bows are very real, and so are quad-limb ones. They're actually preferred for use with explosive tips, because the extra weight behind the shot that can be achieved with the quad-limb bows allows the chance for the tip to be activated to skyrocket. And with the same effect as a rocket impacting a target, they go boom and fuck someone's day up. Well, ideally they're being fired at a firing range in a controlled environment, but you never know what could trigger the next war. The Predator 65 is a quad-limb compound bow that can put in 35 to 65 pounds of weight behind almost every shot you take, assuming you can handle a bow properly. It is known to be very effective, even with just the base build, and as I mentioned, it is preferred amongst archers when using arrows tipped with some form of physical activated explosive. So, most of this stuff is, yet again, plausible right now, just to an extent. In fact, you could essentially build yourself a DIY version of the Tallboys right now, for probably less than $1,000 from online stores. Oops, I've already said too much. Bugger. So, that was my video on some of the tech behind Dishonored's infamous City Watch and their special gear. I know it's not the most exciting episode, especially when you find out that Tesla coils can't logically be weaponized. It made me tear up a little because they just look so darn cool. Yeah, it's a real shame about that. However, I can tell you that today's episode links up with a couple of upcoming episodes that I have planned, which I think you'll really enjoy, so stay tuned. If you want to ask me or anyone else in the ShoddyCast about anything, make sure to give us a follow and tweet over at our Twitter handles. I'm at Stalli's Militia and we're at ShoddyCast, so throw us a line and we'll probably respond. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, drop a comment and subscribe if you've not done so already, and if you want to do more than that, we do have a Patreon that would be extremely grateful if you popped your head into. Lastly, if you want more ShoddyCast action, I should be streaming later on today. The times will be on the screen for you. I'll probably be playing some more Overwatch, however, I may dip into the new Battlefield game, depending on how the download goes. It may download in time, it may not, we'll see. So head over to twitch.tv/ShoddyCast and I'll see you there. Anyway, my name is Andrew or Stalli111 and I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'll see you on the next one.